The champagne flute slipped from Nia Davis's fingers in slow motion, and she watched helplessly as expensive red wine arced through the air before splashing across the pristine white shirt of the tallest, most devastatingly handsome man she'd ever seen. The Christmas party chatter around them died instantly. Oh God, oh no! Nia's heart hammered against her ribs as she grabbed a napkin, her hands shaking. "I'm so sorry, I didn't—" "Stop!" His voice cut through her panic like a blade, deep and commanding, with barely a trace of accent. Dark eyes locked onto hers, and something in his gaze made her freeze mid-reach. Not anger, something far more dangerous. Hunger. The man stood perfectly still, wine dripping down his chest, staining the expensive fabric, but he didn't seem to care. He was staring at her like she'd just performed a miracle he'd stopped believing in. "Follow me." 2 words. Not a request. Nia's throat went dry. Around them, Seoul's elite pretended not to watch, but she felt their stares burning into her back. The temp agency warned her about making mistakes at high-profile events, but this hadn't been covered in the briefing. "I can pay for the dry cleaning," she managed, her Atlanta accent thick with nerves. "Now." He turned and walked toward a hallway lined with modern art, clearly expecting her to follow. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she needed this job. Her grandmother's medical bills in Port-au-Prince wouldn't pay themselves, and she had exactly $200 until the agency paid her next week. Nia followed him down the hallway, her heels clicking against marble floors. The sounds of the party faded. Laughter, clinking glasses, a jazz rendition of White Christmas that felt absurdly cheerful, given the dread pooling in her stomach. He stopped at a door, pulled out a key card, and gestured her inside. A corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Gangnam's glittering skyline, and the city lights cast shadows across his face as he turned to face her. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp jawline, broad shoulders that strained against his ruined shirt, and ink. She caught glimpses of tattoos snaking up his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. Dragons, Korean characters, dangerous. "What's your name?" He shrugged off his suit jacket, and Nia's breath caught as more tattoos revealed themselves along his forearms. Nia Davis." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "Look, I really am sorry. Where are you from?" He unbuttoned his stained shirt with deliberate slowness, revealing a white undershirt that clung to defined muscle. Nia's mouth went dry. "Atlanta. I'm just here temporarily, working until Christmas Eve." "How long have you been in Seoul?" 2 weeks. "Look at me. Nia from Atlanta." She already was looking, but something in his tone made her truly see him. The tension in his jaw, the way his hands trembled slightly on his buttons, the barely controlled intensity radiating from him like heat. "What's your name?" she asked, surprising herself. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Kang Ji-hoon." He said it like she should know. When her expression remained blank, something flickered in his eyes. Relief. "You really don't know who I am." "Should I?" "Most people in Seoul do." He moved closer, and Nia's back hit the desk. Not threatening, just overwhelming. He smelled like expensive cologne and something darker. "But I prefer that you don't." Her pulse thrummed in her throat. "Mr. Kang Ji-hoon." His voice dropped lower. "Say my name." I can't just say it." "Ji-hoon." It came out breathier than she intended. Something ignited in his eyes. His jaw clenched, and she watched his throat work as he swallowed hard. He stared at her like a man seeing water after years in a desert, and the intensity made her skin prickle with awareness. What Nia didn't know was that Ji-hoon hadn't felt this, hadn't felt anything since the night his enemies left him scarred in more ways than one. But she was about to become his cure, his obsession, and his prisoner all at once. "Do you feel it?" he asked roughly, bracing his hands on either side of her against the desk. "Tell me you feel it too." "Feel what?" But she knew. The air between them crackled like a live wire. Ji-hoon's hand lifted slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers traced her jawline with devastating gentleness, and she shivered despite the heat flooding her body. How would you like to earn $1 million? The world tilted. Excuse me? He stepped back, moved to his desk, and extracted a document. When he turned, the hungry man was gone, replaced by someone harder. $1 million US, deposited in escrow. Yours after 3 months. Nia's laugh came out shaky. For what? Stay in Seoul 3 months, that's all. That's insane. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes raked over her. I know that something happens when you're near me, something that hasn't happened in 3 years. His voice roughened on those last words, and she caught a flash of vulnerability before he shuttered it. Something I thought was broken forever. Her mind raced. $1 million. Her grandmother's treatments, her student loans, her entire future, solved. I have a life in Atlanta. I'll cover everything, your rent, your obligations. Just be available when I need you. Available for what? Dinners, conversations. His gaze burned into hers. Your presence. The rational part of Nia screamed this was dangerous, but the part drowning in debt, watching her grandmother suffer, that part was listening. Why me? She whispered. Ji-hoon moved closer, cupped her face. Because 3 years ago something broke inside me, and 5 minutes ago, when you looked at me, I felt whole for the first time since. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. His forehead nearly touched. Hers. Say yes, Nia. If you're already hooked on Nia and Ji-hoon's story, hit that subscribe button, because things are about to get dangerously intense. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. She should run. Should definitely not agree to stay 3 months with a man whose eyes promised things that both terrified and thrilled her. 1 million? Her voice barely worked. Plus expenses. Nia closed her eyes and made a decision that would change everything. I need to see the contract first. Ji-hoon's smile widened, possession burning in his gaze. Smart woman. My lawyer will have everything ready by morning. Tonight, let me take you to dinner. Tonight? I'm not letting you out of my sight until that contract is signed. He shrugged back into his jacket, transforming back into the polished businessman. But Nia had seen beneath the surface now. She knew what lurked under that expensive suit. What if I say no to dinner? Ji-hoon's hand slid around her waist, pulling her flush against him, and the contact sent electricity shooting through her veins. His lips brushed her ear. Then I'll have to convince you, and trust me, Nia. When I want something, I always get it. He released her and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he looked back, heat in his eyes that could have melted steel. Coming? Nia grabbed her clutch with trembling hands and followed him into the unknown, her heart pounding. Yes, yes, yes. She had no idea that the man leading her through Seoul's glittering nightscape was the city's most feared Mafia boss. She had no idea his body had betrayed him for 3 brutal years, and she definitely had no idea that by saying yes to dinner, she just agreed to become the obsession of a man who'd burn the world down before letting her go. But she was about to find out. Ji-hoon's hand rested possessively on the small of Nia's back as they stepped into the private elevator, and she tried to ignore how right it felt. The door slid closed, sealing them in reflective steel and low amber lighting that made everything feel intimate, forbidden. Where are we going? Her voice sounded breathless even to her own ears. Somewhere we can talk without interruption. His thumb traced small circles against her spine through the thin fabric of her dress, and she felt that touch everywhere. Unless you'd prefer to go back to the party? Nia glanced at their reflection. Him, tall, powerful, dangerous in his tailored suit. Her, curves that her grandmother called blessed. Skin that glowed warm brown against his pale complexion, eyes wide with equal parts fear and anticipation. They looked like a collision waiting to happen. No, she said softly. No party. His smile was dark satisfaction. Good girl. The elevator descended into an underground garage where a sleek black Genesis G90 waited, engine already running. A driver stood at attention, but Ji-hoon waved him off with a curt gesture in Korean that sounded more like a command than a dismissal. You drive yourself? Nia asked as he opened her door. Not usually. He waited until she settled into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. But tonight, I don't want anyone else near you. The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed her. Instead, heat pooled low in her belly. Ji-hoon slid into the driver's seat and the car purred to life. Seoul streamed past the windows, neon signs in Hangul, couples huddled under cafe awnings, street vendors selling hotdog despite the December cold. So different from Atlanta's sprawl, yet the loneliness felt the same. "Tell me about your grandmother," Ji-hoon said, navigating through traffic with easy confidence. Nia's head snapped toward him. "How did you mentioned medical bills, Port-au-Prince." His eyes stayed on the road, but his jaw tightened. "I'm very good at reading between lines, Nia. It's how I've stayed alive this long." Something in that last sentence sent a chill down her spine. "What do you do exactly? For work?" "Import and export." Smooth, practiced, a lie wrapped in silk. "Family business, very boring." "You don't seem like the boring type." His laugh was low, rough. "No, I'm really not." He pulled into a narrow alley in Itaewon, parked behind a building with no sign, just a red door. "We're here. Here is, trust me." He came around to open her door, offered his hand. When she took it, his fingers intertwined with hers like they'd done this 1,000 times. "I promise you'll be safe." But safe wasn't what Nia felt as he led her through that red door into a restaurant that looked like someone's living room. Low tables, cushions instead of chairs, paper lanterns casting warm shadows. Empty except for an elderly woman who greeted Ji-hoon with obvious affection, then suddenly gripped his arm, her expression shifting to concern. She spoke rapidly in Korean, glancing nervously toward the window. Ji-hoon's entire body tensed. He responded in a low voice, then forced a smile as he guided Nia to a private corner. Whatever the old woman had said, it had put him on edge. "She says I don't visit enough," Ji-hoon translated, but his eyes kept flicking to the entrance. "And that you're too pretty for me." Nia didn't believe that was all the woman had said. Dishes appeared. Kimchi jjigae, galbi, banchan in small ceramic bowls. The elderly woman kept bringing food, but Nia noticed how her hands shook slightly, how she kept glancing at Ji-hoon like she was worried. "Eat," Ji-hoon commanded gently, picking up his chopsticks with elegant precision. "You barely touched anything at the party." "I was working." "You're not working now." His eyes met hers, and some of the tension melted. "Now you're mine for the evening." There was that word again. Mine. It should have felt oppressive. Instead, it felt like a promise. Nia fumbled with her chopsticks, and Ji-hoon's hand covered hers, adjusting her grip. His touch lingered, thumb stroking the inside of her wrist where her pulse hammered. "Like this," he murmured, gentle but firm. She wasn't thinking about chopsticks anymore. They ate, conversation flowing between bites. Nia told him about Atlanta, about her marketing degree gathering dust while she worked temp jobs, about her grandmother who raised her after her parents died, who taught her Creole songs and how to make griot, who deserved better than choosing between medication and rent. Ji-hoon listened with an intensity that made her feel seen. When she asked about him, he deflected with dark humor and careful omissions. But she learned things anyway. 34, an only child. His father built the family business, and Ji-hoon inherited it 3 years ago under circumstances he wouldn't discuss. 3 years. Always 3 years. "What happened 3 years ago?" Nia asked quietly. Ji-hoon's chopsticks stilled. His expression shuddered. "Nothing you need to worry about." "You said something broke." His phone buzzed, violent and insistent. Ji-hoon glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor changed. Shoulders tensing, jaw clenching, darkness flooding his features. He answered in Korean, his voice dropping to something lethal. Nia caught one word repeated twice. Minjai. The way Ji-hoon said it sounded like a curse. He stood abruptly, spoke into the phone in harsh commands as he walked toward the entrance. Through the paper walls, Nia heard his voice rise, sharp and brutal. The elderly woman emerged from the kitchen, wringing her hands, fear evident in her lined face. What Nia didn't know was that the phone call was about Min-jae, Ji-hoon's cousin who'd been circling like a vulture for 3 years, waiting for Ji-hoon's weakness to become fatal. And now Min-jae had heard whispers about an American woman, about Ji-hoon's sudden interest, about a vulnerability that could finally be exploited. The old woman approached, refilled Nia's tea with trembling hands, and said something soft in Korean that sounded like a warning. "I don't understand," Nia said helplessly. The woman touched Nia's hand, then pointed to Ji-hoon's back, then to her own heart. She shook her head sadly. A chill ran down Nia's spine. When Ji-hoon returned, he was a different man. Colder, harder. The tattoos on his neck seemed darker in the low light, and she noticed for the first time that one of them was a scar, thick and jagged, barely concealed by ink. "We need to go." No explanation, just authority. "What's wrong?" "Business." He pulled out his wallet, left bills that were definitely too much. "Come. Now." Outside, the temperature had dropped. Nia shivered in her cocktail dress, and Ji-hoon immediately shrugged off his jacket, draping it around her shoulders. The gesture was protective, but his eyes scanned the street like he expected threats in every shadow. "Ji-hoon, you're scaring me." He looked at her then. Really? Looked, and some of the ice melted. "I'm sorry." His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I shouldn't have brought you into my world." "What world?" "One where people like me don't get happy endings." His voice was rough with something that sounded like regret. "You should walk away, Nia. Take your temp job, fly home Christmas Eve, forget you ever met me." Her heart clenched. "The contract? Forget the contract. Forget the money." He was so close now, his breath warm against her face, his body blocking the wind. "Because if you stay, if you sign those papers tomorrow, you become mine. And I don't share, I don't let go, and I definitely don't play fair." Nia should have been terrified, should have taken his warning and run. But all she could think about was the loneliness in his eyes, the way his hand trembled slightly against her face, the feeling that they were two broken people who somehow fit. "What if I don't want to forget?" she whispered. Ji-hoon's control snapped. He pulled her against him, one hand fisting in her hair, the other spanning her waist. His forehead pressed to hers, and the raw need in his expression made her knees weak. "Then God help us both." His lips hovered over hers, a breath away from crossing a line they couldn't uncross. "Because once I have you, Nia, I'm never letting you go." A black SUV screeched around the corner, headlights blinding. Ji-hoon reacted instantly, spinning them so his body shielded hers, his hand moving to his waistband where there was definitely a gun. The SUV slowed, stopped. A window rolled down, and a man's voice called out in Korean. Ji-hoon responded, his tone deadly calm, never moving from his protective stance in front of Nia. The window rolled up. The SUV drove away, but Nia had felt it. The weapon. The way he moved like violence was second nature. The fear in the old woman's eyes. The truth clicked into place with terrifying clarity. "You're not just an importer," she said against his chest, her voice muffled by his shirt. Her hands fisted in the fabric, caught between pulling him closer and pushing him away. "Are you?" Ji-hoon's arms tightened around her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, devastatingly, "No, I'm not." "Then what are you?" He pulled back just enough to look at her, and in his eyes she saw danger, darkness, and something that looked dangerously like devotion. "I'm the man who's going to give you one last chance to run." Nia didn't run. She should have. Every logical bone in her body screamed at her to get in a taxi, go back to her tiny apartment in Itaewon, pack her single suitcase, and catch the first flight back to Atlanta. Instead, she stood in that cold alley with Ji-hoon's jacket around her shoulders and his confession hanging between them like smoke. "What does that mean?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "What are you?" Ji-hoon's jaw worked, muscles tensing beneath skin. "The kind of man your grandmother would tell you to stay away from." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight." He reached for her hand and she let him take it, even though warning bells were clanging in her head. "Let me take you home." The drive back was silent except for the hum of expensive engine and Seoul's nighttime symphony filtering through the windows. Nia watched neon signs blur past, her mind racing. Gun, SUV, the way that man's voice had held both fear and respect. The scar beneath Ji-hoon's tattoos, import and export, right. Ji-hoon pulled up outside her building, a narrow structure wedged between a convenience store and a noribang, nothing like the glittering towers of Gangnam. He killed the engine but didn't move to get out. "You live here alone?" His voice was tight. "It's temporary. The agency arranged it." Nia turned to face him. "Ji-hoon, I need you to be honest with me. What am I getting into if I sign that contract?" He stared straight ahead, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Luxury, protection, everything you need." A pause. "And danger you don't deserve." From who? From me. He finally looked at her, and the raw vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. From my world. From men who would hurt you just to hurt me. Like the man in the SUV, Ji-hoon's expression darkened. That was a warning. My cousin. He's been waiting 3 years for me to show weakness. His hand found hers. "You're that weakness, Nia." Her stomach dropped. "Then why offer me the contract at all? If it's so dangerous, because I'm selfish." His hand shot out, cupping her face with desperate gentleness. "Because for 3 years I've been half dead, and you make me feel alive. Because the second you looked at me tonight, I knew I'd do anything, break any rule, cross any line, to keep you." His thumb traced her lower lip, and Nia's breath hitched. "That's not fair. I told you I don't play fair." He leaned closer, and she could smell his cologne mixed with something darker. Gunpowder, maybe, or just the scent of danger. "Tell me to leave, Nia. Tell me you don't feel this too, and I'll walk away. You'll never see me again." She should say it, should end this before it started. But when she opened her mouth, different words came out. "I feel it." Ji-hoon's control shattered. He pulled her across the console into his lap, and Nia went willingly, her dress riding up as she straddled him in the driver's seat. His hands spanned her waist, fingers digging into her hips with possessive pressure that should have scared her, but instead sent heat flooding through her veins. "You're going to ruin me." He breathed against her neck, lips trailing along her pulse point. "Completely destroy me." "Good," Nia gasped as his teeth grazed her skin. Her hands fisted in his hair, and she felt him groan, felt the evidence of his desire pressing against her through expensive fabric. 3 years of nothing, and now this consuming need that felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. His phone buzzed, once, twice, insistent. "Ignore it," Ji-hoon growled against her collarbone, his hand sliding up her thigh. But Nia felt the tension returning to his body, the way his grip shifted from passionate to protective. "You should answer that. I should take you upstairs." His eyes were black with desire, his usual control nowhere in sight. "I should show you exactly what you do to me." God, she wanted that. But something in his phone's persistent buzzing felt urgent. Wrong. "Answer it," she said firmly, climbing back into her seat even though every nerve ending protested. "Please," Ji-hoon cursed in Korean, something that sounded like shabal, and grabbed his phone. His expression shifted from frustrated to lethal in seconds as he listened. He responded in rapid, harsh commands, then ended the call. "I have to go." He was already scanning the street, that predatory awareness back in full force. "Now, what's wrong?" "Min-jae's moving faster than I expected." His hand moved instinctively toward his waistband. "I need to handle this before it reaches you." Fear spiked through her arousal. "Ji-hoon, go inside, lock your door, don't open it for anyone." He grabbed her hand, brought it to his lips. "I'm having security cameras installed on your building tonight. My men will be watching. You're safe." "You're putting cameras on my building?" "I'm putting them everywhere you might be." His grip tightened. "Promise me you'll go straight inside and stay there until morning." What Nia didn't know was that Min-jae had already started his hunt. While she sat in Ji-hoon's car, Min-jae's men were pulling up surveillance footage from the Christmas party, tracking her movements, learning her patterns. By morning, he'd know everything about her, where she lived, where she worked, every vulnerable point he could exploit, and Minji had learned patience. He'd waited 3 years for Ji-hoon to care about something again. He could wait a few more hours to take it away. "Promise me, Nia." "Okay, I promise." But her voice shook. "Good." He pulled her close one more time, pressed a hard kiss to her forehead. "My lawyer will bring the contract at 9 a.m. If you don't sign it, if you decide this is too much, I'll understand. But if you do sign..." His grip tightened. "If you do, you're mine. No takebacks, no running. Mine." Before Nia could respond, he was ushering her out of the car, watching with hawk-like intensity until she reached her building's entrance. She turned to wave, but he was already pulling away, the Genesis disappearing into Seoul's nighttime traffic like a dark dream. Nia climbed the narrow stairs to her third-floor apartment, hyper-aware of every sound. The couple arguing next door in rapid Korean, the noraebang bass thumping dynamite through the walls. Footsteps on the stairs that made her freeze until her elderly neighbor appeared, arms full of grocery bags. The old woman smiled, said something in Korean, and continued past. Nia's hands shook as she unlocked her door. Inside, her apartment felt smaller than usual, just a narrow room with a bed, tiny bathroom, and a kitchen that was barely a hot plate and mini fridge. The window overlooked the street, and she found herself checking it compulsively, looking for threats she wouldn't recognize. She showered, scrubbing off makeup and the scent of Ji-hoon's cologne, trying to think rationally. This was crazy. He was dangerous. He'd admitted as much. She should absolutely not sign that contract. But as she dried off and pulled on an oversized Atlanta Braves t-shirt, all she could think about was the broken desperation in his eyes. The way his hands had trembled when he touched her, the feeling that she'd finally found something, someone, worth the risk. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Sleep well, Nia. Dream of me. JH." And then, seconds later, "You looked beautiful tonight. That dress is burned into my memory. I'll be thinking about taking it off you until I see you again." Heat flooded through her despite everything. She shouldn't respond, should definitely not encourage this. Her fingers moved anyway. "You're trouble." His reply was instant, the best kind. 9 a.m. beautiful. "Don't keep me waiting." Nia smiled despite herself, climbed into bed, pulled the thin blanket up. Maybe it would be okay. Maybe. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. "Pretty girl in the red dress. You should be more careful about who you trust in Seoul. Not everyone is who they seem." A friend. Nia's blood ran cold. She shot up in bed, ran to her window, looked down at the street. A black car idled at the corner, watching. Her hands trembled as she backed away from the window. Another buzz. Ji-hoon. "Did you just get a text from an unknown number? One of my security cameras just caught someone photographing your building." "Yes. How did you know?" "I told you, I'm watching. Don't respond to it. Don't leave your apartment. I'm sending additional men to your building now. You're safe. I promise." But Nia didn't feel safe. She felt like prey, like she'd stumbled into a war zone without realizing it. She triple-checked her door lock, pushed her small dresser against it for good measure, and sat on her bed with her phone clutched in shaking hands. The black car was still there, still watching, and tomorrow morning, she had to decide if she was brave enough or foolish enough to sign her name on a contract that would bind her to the most dangerous man in Seoul. A man whose enemies were already circling, a man who just made her a target. Nia didn't sleep. She watched that black car through her window until sunrise painted Seoul's sky in shades of pink and gold, until the vehicle finally pulled away and was replaced by a different one. This one with 2 men inside who looked like they could break someone in half without breaking a sweat. Ji-hoon's men, watching, protecting, or guarding, depending on how she looked at it. At 8:30, her doorbell buzzed. Nia jumped, heart hammering, then checked her phone. A text from Ji-hoon. "That's breakfast. Let him in." She cracked the door open, chain still attached, and found a young man in a suit holding bags from what smelled like an expensive bakery. He bowed slightly, said something in Korean, and held up his phone. A photo of him standing next to Ji-hoon, both of them in what looked like an office. Verification. Nia took the chain off, accepted the food with shaking hands. The man bowed again and left without a word. Inside the bags, fresh croissants still warm from the oven, sliced mango and strawberries, coffee from a shop she definitely couldn't afford, and a small box. She opened it with trembling fingers and found a phone, sleek, new, expensive. A note was tucked inside in sharp, elegant handwriting. Your old phone isn't secure. Use this one. I'm #1 on speed dial. Anything you need, call me. Anything you fear, call me. Anything at all. JH. Nia stared at the phone, emotions warring inside her. This was control, possession, everything she should run from. But it was also protection. Care. Someone giving a damn whether she lived or died. She picked up the new phone, pressed 1. He answered before the first ring finished. Nia. Just her name, but the relief in his voice made her chest tight. You didn't sleep. How do you... She stopped. The cameras. I watched your window all night. No apology in his tone. I saw you looking out. I'm sorry you were scared. You should be sorry for making me a target. A pause. I am. More than you know. His voice dropped lower, rough with exhaustion. But I'm not sorry for wanting you, and I'm not sorry that in exactly 20 minutes you're going to sign a contract that makes you mine. Presumptuous. Hopeful. She heard movement on his end, voices speaking rapid Korean in the background. My lawyer is leaving now. Her name is Park Soo-jin. She'll have identification. Don't open the door for anyone else. Ji-hoon, I haven't decided. Yes, you have. Not arrogant, just certain. You decided the moment you pressed 1 on that phone. You decided when you didn't run last night. You decided when you looked at me in that office and felt what I felt. He was right. Damn him. He was right. 3 months, Nia said, quietly. That's all I'm agreeing to. We'll see. The promise in those words sent shivers down her spine. Answer the door when Soo-jin arrives. I'll see you soon, beautiful. He hung up before she could respond. Nia forced herself to eat, though the croissants tasted like sawdust in her dry mouth. She showered, pulled on jeans and a cream sweater, was braiding her hair when the doorbell rang again. The woman at her door was striking. Sharp black suit, severe bun, eyes that assessed Nia in seconds. She held up a badge. Ms. Davis, I'm Park Soo-jin, Mr. Kang's attorney. May I come in? Nia stepped aside, and Soo-jin entered with the confidence of someone used to being the smartest person in any room. She set a leather portfolio on the small table, then turned to Nia with an expression that was carefully neutral. The contract is straightforward, Soo-jin began, opening the portfolio. 3 months, $1 million, all expenses paid. You'll live in a secure apartment in Gangnam. Wait, Nia's hands clenched. Before we do this, I need to know. What happened to him? 3 years ago. Soo-jin's mask slipped for just a moment, something like pain crossing her features. That's not my story to tell. Then tell me what I'm walking into. Please. Soo-jin studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Off the record? Ji-hoon's cousin orchestrated an attack, not just physical. They wanted to destroy him in every way possible. Her voice dropped. They succeeded. For 3 years, he's been broken. Until you. The weight of that settled on Nia's shoulders like stone. So I'm what? His cure? You're his hope. Soo-jin pulled out the contract. The question is whether you can handle being that. Nia stared at the documents, at the legal language that reduced this impossible situation to clauses and subsections. What does he get out of this? Really? Your company. Your time, your presence. Soo-jin met her eyes. The contract is clear. You're not obligated to anything physical without consent. You can end this arrangement whenever you want, though full payment requires completing 3 months. And what's not in the contract? That men like Ji-hoon don't love halfway. That once you're his, he won't let go easily. That his world is dangerous and his enemies are worse. Soo-jin's expression softened slightly. But he'll protect you with everything he has. I've never seen him care about anyone the way he cares about you, and you haven't even signed yet. 2 blocks away, Min-jae sat in a cafe called Coffee Bay, the shop's hip-hop playlist thumping as university students typed on laptops around him. His Americano had gone cold, but he didn't care. His phone screen showed a live feed, not of Nia's apartment, but of the building's entrance. He'd watched Park Soo-jin enter with that telltale leather portfolio 20 minutes ago, watched Ji-hoon's security detail change shifts, watched his cousin's pathetic attempt to protect something precious. Min-jae's associate, a thin man with a scar above his eyebrow, slid into the seat across from him. The girl signed? She will. Min-jae smiled. Ji-hoon won't give her a choice. He'll be charming, possessive, overwhelming. She'll think she's special. And then? Then we let him get comfortable. Let him think his cameras and bodyguards are enough. Let him fall completely. Min-jae took a sip of cold coffee, grimaced. The deeper he falls, the more it'll hurt when I take her. When? Christmas Eve, when she's supposed to fly home. Min-jae's smile widened. Poetic, don't you think? Back in the apartment, Nia held the pen Soo-jin offered. Her hand trembled. Once you sign, Soo-jin said quietly, everything changes. Your old life ends. Ji-hoon's security protocols take effect immediately. Driver, bodyguards, monitored movements. It's not a suggestion, Ms. Davis. You become his responsibility, his obsession. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to prepare you. Soo-jin's voice was almost gentle. I've worked for him 5 years. I've never seen him vulnerable. But you terrify him because you matter. And in his world, anything that matters is a weapon someone can use against him. Nia thought about her grandmother in Port-au-Prince, about the medical bills that haunted her dreams, about the student loans that would follow her forever. She thought about Ji-hoon's eyes last night, that desperate hunger, that broken hope. She thought about how alone she'd felt in Atlanta, in Seoul, in her own skin until a man spilled wine on his shirt and looked at her like she was oxygen. The pen touched paper. Her signature formed in shaky letters next to Ji-hoon's bold, confident strokes. It's done, Soo-jin said, countersigning as witness. She pulled out her phone, typed rapidly. Your money transfers to escrow now. Ji-hoon will send a car at 4 to take you to your new apartment in Cheongdam-dong. This afternoon? Nia's stomach dropped. I thought that you'd have time to change your mind? Soo-jin's smile was knowing. He won't risk it. Pack what matters. He'll provide everything else. She moved to the door, then paused. One more thing. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, call him. He gave you that phone for a reason. After Soo-jin left, Nia sat on her narrow bed surrounded by 2 weeks of her life in Seoul. Clothes from Dongdaemun Market, books with cracked spines, photos of her grandmother tucked into the mirror's edge. The room suddenly felt suffocating, too small for the decision she'd just made. Her new phone buzzed. Ji-hoon, it's done? Yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, thank God, I haven't breathed since Soo-jin left my office. Despite everything, Nia smiled. Dramatic. You have no idea. I'll see you at 4. Pack light. I want to buy you everything new. Ji-hoon. No second thoughts, Nia. You're mine now, every beautiful, terrifying inch of you. Mine. She should have been frightened by the possessiveness in those words. Instead, warmth flooded through her. Dangerous, reckless warmth that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with the ache in her chest that said maybe, just maybe, she was his too. Another text came through. I know you're scared. I know this is insane, but I promise you, Nia, I'll keep you safe, whatever it takes. No one touches what's mine. Nia looked around her cramped apartment one last time, at the life she was leaving behind, at the unknown she was walking into. She thought about her grandmother's voice. Sometimes, Tifi, the scariest thing is also the rightest thing. She picked up the phone. I'm trusting you. Don't make me regret it. His response was immediate. Never. See you soon, beautiful. Your new life starts today. Nia began to pack, her hands steadier now, her decision made. She'd signed away 3 months to Seoul's most dangerous man. But deep down, in the part of her that recognized broken things because she was broken too, she knew 3 months wouldn't be enough for either of them. The car that arrived at 4 wasn't the Genesis from last night. This was a black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows and a driver who introduced himself as Mr. Choi. Mid-40s, ex-military posture, eyes that scanned the street before opening her door. "Miss Davis," he said in careful English. "Mr. Kang sends his regards. He's waiting for you." Nia's single suitcase looked pathetic in the SUV's spacious trunk. Everything she owned fit in one bag, and she was about to move into a world where that probably seemed impossible. The drive from Itaewon to Cheongdam-dong took 30 minutes through Seoul's afternoon traffic. Nia watched the city transform outside her window. From her neighborhood's crowded streets and Pojangmatcha food stalls to Gangnam's towering luxury, where every building gleamed like money and power had been poured into its foundation. Mr. Choi pulled up to a high-rise that made her old building look like a dollhouse. Doormen in uniforms opened the car door. A concierge greeted her in English. Everything was marble and gold accents, and the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because it simply was. "Penthouse," Mr. Choi said, guiding her to a private elevator that required a key card. "Mr. Kang is already upstairs." The elevator climbed so smoothly Nia barely felt the movement. Her reflection in the mirrored walls showed a woman who looked terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Hair still in its braid, cream sweater suddenly feeling shabby, eyes too wide. The doors opened directly into an apartment that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's sprawl. The space was modern minimalism mixed with traditional Korean elements, low furniture and rich fabrics, hanji paper screens, art that probably cost more than her student loans. Everything in blacks, whites, and warm woods that made the space feel both expensive and oddly intimate. And there, silhouetted against the windows, stood Ji-hoon. He'd changed from last night's suit into black jeans and a charcoal sweater that clung to his frame, casual in a way that somehow made him more dangerous. The afternoon light caught his profile. Sharp jaw, those tattoos visible on his neck, the tension in his shoulders that said he'd been waiting, watching for her arrival. "Nia." He turned, and the relief that flooded his expression made her chest tight. "You came. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might realize how insane this is and run." He crossed to her in 3 long strides, and suddenly his hands were framing her face, thumbs stroking her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. "I've been half convinced since this morning that you'd disappear. I signed a contract." Fuck the contract. The curse was rough, almost desperate. "I just needed you here. Needed to see you. Needed—" He cut himself off, jaw clenching. "Needed what?" Instead of answering, Ji-hoon pulled her against him, wrapped his arms around her like he was afraid she'd evaporate. Nia felt his heart hammering against her cheek, felt the tremor in his hands as they pressed against her back. She let herself sink into him, breathed in his scent. Cologne and something darker, something that was just him. 3 years, he said into her hair, his voice breaking slightly. 3 years of nothing, of being broken, and then you... He pulled back just enough to look at her, and the raw vulnerability in his eyes nearly undid her. "You have no idea what you've given me." Nia's throat burned. "Ji-hoon, let me show you your room." He stepped back abruptly, like he'd revealed too much. "This way." He led her down a hallway lined with art that probably cost more than her old car. "Your room is here," he said, opening a door to reveal a bedroom that was bigger than her entire old apartment. King bed with white linens, a sitting area, windows overlooking the city. "This is mine? Everything here is yours." Ji-hoon leaned against the doorframe, watching her reaction with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "The closet has clothes. Soo-jin guessed your size. If anything doesn't fit, we'll fix it." Nia opened, the walk-in closet, and her breath caught. Designer labels, fabrics that felt like sin, shoes organized by color, everything in her size. "This is too much." "Nothing is too much for you." He moved behind her close enough that she felt his heat. "Try something on. I want to see you in clothes I chose." The command in his voice sent shivers down her spine. "Now?" "Now." His breath was warm against her ear. "Unless you'd rather I helped you undress first?" Heat flooded through her. "I can manage." His low laugh was pure sin. Pity, I'll be in the kitchen. Don't take too long, beautiful. I'm not a patient man. After he left, Nia's hands shook as she selected a soft burgundy sweater and black jeans that fit like they'd been made for her body. When she caught her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The clothes transformed her from struggling temp worker to someone who belonged in this world of wealth and danger. But what Nia didn't know was that 2 floors below, in the building's security office, one of the guards was sending photos to a burner phone. Photos of her arrival. Photos of Ji-hoon greeting her with desperate relief. Min-jae had paid well for inside access, and the guard's gambling debts made loyalty cheap. Nia found Ji-hoon in a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine. He'd rolled up his sleeves, revealing more of those intricate tattoos, dragons that seemed to move in the low lighting, Korean characters she couldn't read, and there, just visible above his wrist, another scar. His eyes darkened when he saw her. "Perfect," he said, his voice rough. "You look perfect. It's just clothes. It's you in clothes I bought you, in my home, about to eat food I'm making you." He turned back to the stove where beef sizzled. "You have no idea what that does to me." The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed her. Instead, it made her pulse race. "I'm making bulgogi," he continued, "and kimchi fried rice, my mother's recipes." "You said she passed away." "When I was 19. His knife stilled for just a moment. "Cancer. She taught me to cook because she said a man who can feed himself doesn't need saving." "And do you? Need saving?" Ji-hoon looked at her, and the raw honesty in his expression nearly undid her. "I did. Until you." They ate at a low table near the windows, Seoul glittering below them. Nia told him about Port-au-Prince, about her grandmother's tiny house with the mango tree, about losing her parents, and her grandmother becoming everything. "She sounds remarkable," Ji-hoon said quietly. "She is." Nia's throat tightened. "The treatments aren't working. The doctors say maybe 6 months. Then we'll get her better doctors. Fly her here if needed." His hand covered hers. "You're mine now, Nia. That means your family is my responsibility, too." A phone buzzed. Not Ji-hoon's, but somewhere in the apartment. He tensed immediately, head turning toward the sound. "What is it?" "Security system." He stood, moved to a panel on the wall. His expression darkened as he read something on the screen. "Someone's testing our cameras, trying to find blind spots." Nia's stomach dropped. "Min-jae? Probably." Ji-hoon's jaw clenched as he typed something, then made a call in rapid Korean. When he hung up, murder was in his eyes. "I'm doubling security. No one gets near you." "Ji-hoon, maybe this was a mistake. If I'm putting you in danger..." He was across the room in seconds, caging her against the windows, his body a wall of heat and barely controlled violence. Don't even think it. "But you're not going anywhere." His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up to his. "I chose this. I chose you. And I'll burn this entire city down before I let him touch you." "That's not reassuring. It's a promise." His thumb traced her lower lip, and she watched his pupils dilate. "Do you have any idea how hard it is not to kiss you right now?" "Then why don't you?" The words were out before she could stop them. Ji-hoon's control visibly cracked. "Because if I start, I won't stop." His voice was gravel and need. "Because I want to take you to my bed and spend hours learning every sound you make. Because I've waited 3 years to feel something, and now I feel everything, and it's terrifying." Nia's hands fisted in his sweater. "I'm scared too." "Good." His forehead pressed to hers. "Be scared with me. Just don't leave me." "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. Ji-hoon's kiss was inevitable, desperate and claiming, his hands pulling her impossibly closer as his mouth moved over hers with 3 years of pent-up hunger. Nia melted into him, gasped when his teeth grazed her lower lip, moaned when his tongue swept into her mouth. He tasted like sin and salvation, and she wanted more. Ji-hoon lifted her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist as he pressed her against the glass. Seoul glittered behind her, but all she could feel was him. His hands spanning her waist, his hips pressed against hers, the evidence of his desire hard and insistent. "Nia!" He groaned against her neck, his control hanging by a thread. Tell me to stop. No. His laugh was dark, dangerous. You're going to ruin me, beautiful, completely destroy me. Good, she gasped as his mouth found the sensitive spot below her ear. You've already ruined me. But across the city, Min-jae was watching those same security feeds his guard had compromised. He saw Ji-hoon and Nia silhouetted against the penthouse windows, saw the kiss that proved everything he'd suspected. His cousin wasn't just interested in the girl, he was obsessed. Perfect. Min-jae pulled out his burner phone, sent a single text to a number in Busan. Christmas Eve. Make it clean. I want her alive. The response came quickly. Understood. Fee doubled for the holidays. Done. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to let Ji-hoon feel safe. 2 weeks before everything came crashing down. Ji-hoon carried Nia to his bedroom. Not hers, his. And she didn't protest. Couldn't protest when his mouth was doing sinful things to her neck, when his hands were exploring her body like he was memorizing every curve, when 3 years of abstinence and 1 night of desperate wanting had collided into this moment. He set her down beside his bed, and she had a brief impression of dark colors, floor-to-ceiling windows, the scent of his cologne everywhere, before his hands were framing her face again, his kiss slower this time but no less consuming. Tell me to stop, he breathed again against her lips. Tell me this is too fast and I'll walk away. Nia's answer was to pull his sweater over his head. The sight of him stole her breath. Defined muscle, golden skin marked with ink and scars. The dragon tattoo wrapped around his ribs, Korean characters down his side, and there, across his chest, a scar that looked like someone had tried to carve him open. Her fingers traced it. What happened? Later. His voice was rough as his hands found the hem of her sweater. Right now, I just want to feel you, all of you. Is that okay? She nodded, and he pulled the fabric over her head with shaking hands. When he looked at her, really looked, the desire in his eyes made her feel powerful and precious in equal measure. Beautiful, he whispered. So damn beautiful. He laid her back on his bed, and Nia gasped as his weight settled over her, as his mouth found her collarbone, her shoulder, the sensitive skin just above her heart. His hands explored with devastating patience, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into him, what made her moan his name. Ji-hoon, she breathed. Please, tell me what you want, Nia. I want you. Something in his expression cracked open, that last thread of control finally snapping. You have me. You've had me since the moment you looked at me. His hands found the button of her jeans. But once we do this, there's no going back. You're mine. Completely. I'm already yours, she whispered. What happened next was heat and hunger and 3 years of broken, finally made whole. Ji-hoon worshipped her body with his hands, his mouth, whispered words in Korean and English that sounded like prayers. And when they finally came together, when he filled the emptiness that had haunted him, the sound he made was something between a groan and a sob. They moved together like they'd been designed to fit, like every broken piece inside them was finally finding its match. And when pleasure crashed over her, Ji-hoon followed seconds later, his face buried in her neck, his hands gripping her like he'd never let go. After they lay tangled in sheets, Seoul's lights painting patterns across their skin, Ji-hoon pulled her against his chest, his heartbeat still racing under her palm. 3 years, he said quietly. 3 years of being told it was psychological, that I needed to heal. He pressed a kiss to her hair. And then you fixed everything. Nia propped herself up on his chest. Tell me what happened. Please. Ji-hoon was quiet, then slowly began to speak. 3 years ago, Min-jae orchestrated an ambush. He wanted control, but couldn't just kill me. Too many loyalists. So he destroyed me another way. His jaw clenched. They held me down, made me watch while they killed my best friend. Then they carved me open and injected me with something experimental. It attacked my nervous system, made it impossible to feel desire to function. The trauma reinforced the physical damage. I was trapped in my own broken body. Until me, Nia said softly. Until you. He cupped her face. The second you touched me, I felt alive again. Glass shattered. Ji-hoon moved instantly, rolling them off the bed as bullets tore through the windows. He covered her body with his, reached under the bed frame, came up with a gun. "Stay down," he commanded. More gunfire. The door kicked in. "Young!" Min-jae's voice called from the hallway, mocking. "Come out, let's be civilized." Ji-hoon grabbed his phone, typed rapidly while keeping the gun trained on the door. "There's a panic room through that closet, biometric lock. Get inside, don't come out until I come for you." "I'm not leaving you, Nia." His eyes were fierce, desperate. "I can't fight him and protect you. Please, let me end this. I have 4 of your men." Min-jae's voice came closer. "Including your driver. Come out or I start executing them." What Min-jae didn't know was that Nia had grown up in Port-au-Prince after the earthquake, had learned to fight, to survive. Her grandmother hadn't raised a helpless girl. "Go," Nia whispered to Ji-hoon. "I'll use the panic room, I promise." He kissed her hard, fast, then moved toward the door with lethal grace. The second he was gone, Nia grabbed the second gun from his nightstand. She'd noticed it earlier. Her hands shook as she checked the magazine. Loaded. Safety off. She moved toward the hallway, staying low. In the living room, Ji-hoon stood facing Min-jae. Min-jae held a gun to Mr. Choi's head. 3 other guards were on their knees, bound. "There he is," Min-jae smiled. "How does it feel to be whole again? Where is she, by the way? I'd love to meet the miracle cure before I take her." "You're not touching her." "That's not up to you anymore. I've waited 3 years for you to care about something so I could take it away." What Min-jae didn't see was Nia emerging behind him. What he didn't expect was a gun pressed against his spine. "Drop it," Nia said, her voice steadier than she felt, "or I put a bullet in your back." The room froze. Ji-hoon's eyes went wide with terror and fury. "Nia, get back!" "Shut up!" She pressed the gun harder. "You, drop your weapon, now!" Min-jae laughed. "You won't shoot. You're not like us." Nia pulled the trigger. The bullet hit his shoulder. She'd aimed low, the way she'd been taught. Min-jae dropped his gun and Mr. Choi tackled him instantly. Chaos erupted. Ji-hoon's men swarmed in. Soo-jin had already been mobilizing them. Min-jae's backup tried to fight, but were outnumbered. It was over in minutes. Ji-hoon crossed to Nia, took the gun gently from her shaking hands. "You shot him." "I actually shot someone. Oh, God." "Hey," he pulled her against him. "You saved lives. You saved me. You're incredible and terrifying and—" He pulled back, cupped her face. "And I'm so in love with you, I can barely breathe." Nia's heart stopped. "What?" "I love you." He said it louder, like he wanted everyone to hear. "I'm completely, obsessively in love with you, Nia Davis. And if you'll stay with me, even knowing how dark my world is, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You're insane." "Completely. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." She grabbed his face, kissed him hard. "I love you too." Police sirens wailed. Soo-jin appeared, already making phone calls. Min-jae was cuffed, bleeding, defeated. As they dragged him past, he looked at Ji-hoon with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes," Ji-hoon said quietly, pulling Nia closer. "It is. You wanted to break me by taking away everything I cared about. But all you did was show me what I was fighting for." He pressed a kiss to Nia's temple. "She's not my weakness. She's my strength." The apartment emptied slowly. Paramedics, police, Ji-hoon's men securing the perimeter. Soo-jin handled everything with her usual efficiency, and finally, blessedly, they were alone. Ji-hoon led Nia back to his bedroom, stepping carefully over broken glass. The windows were shattered, cold December air pouring in, but neither of them cared. He pulled her onto the bed, their bed now, and just held her, his face buried in her neck, his body shaking with aftershocks of fear and relief. "I thought I'd lost you," he said roughly. "When I saw you standing there with that gun, facing him, I couldn't let him hurt you. Couldn't let him take away what we just found." Nia's hands fisted in his shirt. "I was so scared." "Me too." He pulled back to look at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her chest ache. "You were supposed to hide. You were supposed to stay safe." "I'm not very good at following orders." His laugh was broken, breathless. "No, You're really not. He kissed her softly, thoroughly, like he was reminding himself she was real, whole, his. You're brave and reckless and perfect, and I don't deserve you. Too bad. You're stuck with me now. Promise. His voice cracked on the word. Promise, she whispered, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted like tears and relief in the future they'd just fought for. They made love again as dawn broke over Seoul. Slower this time, tender, reaffirming with every touch that they'd survived, that they were whole, that nothing would tear them apart again. And when Ji-hoon finally collapsed beside her, pulling her against his chest, Nia felt something settle deep in her soul. Home. She'd found home in the arms of Seoul's most dangerous man. 3 weeks later, Christmas lights twinkled across the city as Ji-hoon led Nia to the repaired floor-to-ceiling windows. New glass, bulletproof this time. New security, but the same view of Seoul stretching endlessly below them. I have something for you, he said, his voice carrying a nervousness she'd never heard before. Ji-hoon, you've already given me everything. Not this. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Nia's breath caught. I know it's fast, 3 weeks since the night that changed everything, but I wasted 3 years being half alive, and I'm not wasting another second. He opened the box to reveal a ring, a single diamond surrounded by smaller stones, delicate, yet strong, just like her. Marry me, Nia. Not because of a contract or convenience. Marry me because I can't imagine waking up without you, because you shot my cousin to protect people you barely knew, and that's somehow the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for me. Nia laughed through sudden tears. That's your bar for romance? With my life? Absolutely. His smile was devastating. Marry me because you're brave enough to love a broken man who's learning to be whole, because you make me want to be better, safer, someone worthy of you. Say yes, Nia. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth the risk you took on me. Yes, the word came out choked with emotion. Yes, you impossible, wonderful, obsessive man. Yes. The ring slid onto her finger like it had been made for her. Knowing Ji-hoon, it probably had been. He pulled her into his arms, kissed her with a tenderness that made her knees weak, then rested his forehead against hers. Your grandmother, he said softly. I had my people research her case. There's a treatment program in Switzerland, experimental but promising. I've already arranged everything if she's willing. Flights, accommodation, the best doctor's money can buy. Nia's throat tightened. You don't have to. She's family now, mine to protect, mine to care for. His arms tightened around her. Besides, I need her healthy enough to attend our wedding, and to tell me embarrassing stories about you as a child. I love you, Nia whispered, the words coming easier each time, even though you're controlling and possessive and probably planned this proposal down to the second. Guilty, he grinned against her hair, and I love you too, my brave, beautiful, trigger-happy queen, forever. Outside, Seoul glittered with Christmas lights and infinite possibility. Nia had come to this city alone, broke, desperate. Just a temp worker trying to survive until her flight home. She was staying as someone's everything, claimed, protected, loved by a man who'd been shattered and learned that the cracks were where the light got in. And sometimes, the most beautiful love stories grew from the most broken pieces. Some kings were worth following into the darkness, especially when they'd burn the whole world down just to keep you safe. Be honest. When Nia grabbed that gun, did your heart stop? Hit like if you were screaming at your screen, and subscribe for more stories where the heroines are just as dangerous as their men. Comment your favorite moment below.